Hello everybody, I am Harsh Avasthi from Department of Management, Noida Institute of Engineering and Technology, Greater Noida. In the previous chapter, we talked about time value of money with a special reference to future value calculation of single flow as well as the annuity. In this second lecture of time value of money, we will talk about calculating the present value of money. Referring to the earlier slide again, as I had emphasized on now, the italicized word, you can be seeing it, I am reiterating it, individual's preference for possession of a given amount of money now rather than the same amount at a given future time, because individual could not be certain about the uncertainties of the future, events of the future, because that is future. We can only predict it, we can only forecast it. We cannot say that this shall happen, this will happen. We always say this could happen. And that is why whenever any of the decision regarding any investment is going to be taken by the businesses in practice, that is taken on the value of the present value of the investment and present value of those future cash inflows which would be arising at some given later date. We have to be very much concerned about this, because an analyst or a business manager can only predict the future values. It cannot make a dead sure statement that this would be the value. In certain cases we could be doing it, but when amounts are too large, when we talk about the capital budgeting decisions are basically irreversible in nature. They are of huge amount. We have to go for a number of appraisal criteria before selecting any project. That could be a discounted cash flow technique, that could be a non-discounted cash flow technique. So, different tools are available there, different appraisal criteria are available there, based on which we decide whether we should go for this project, whether we should go for this investment or not. But this is going to be decided on a appraisal criteria. But a very simple criteria is time value of money and the present value of the future cash inflow, the simplest one out of all those. As I said earlier that these decisions are irreversible in nature. So, if it is related to a small amount of investment, little amount of investment, perhaps I could be bearing the risk of loss, risk of less return, even less risk of losing out my principal partly or fully. But if it is large amount where stakes of numerous people, numerous stakeholders are invested, they are going to be catered for, I cannot play with them. I have to decide, I have to follow a perfect appraisal criteria. I have to decide, I have to come up with a value that whatever I would be receiving at a later date, at a given date, what would be the value of that inflow today. If I am able to fetch that value, then I could be able to know the reality of my investments, reality of my cash flows, because market is very much vulnerable, it is highly unstable, filled with uncertainties. On the foundation of the risks, risks are systematic and unsystematic. Unsystematic can be diversified, but systematic cannot be diversified, you cannot eliminate those risks. So, how to go for them? That is why the very basic, very simple function is there. Whatever is supposed to be received at a later date, at a future date, we are simply going to calculate its present value. As in the earlier chapter of the time value of money in reference to calculation of future value of single cash flow and annuity, we simply calculated the future values using the compounding value factor for a single cash flow as well as for a annuity cash flow. Here we are going to do a reverse process. we would have been given the premises in terms of that these one will be the expected cash flows in the future. I have to select the best alternative. How I would be doing that? Earlier I compounded it, now I have to make a reverse action of compounding, that is known as the discounting. So, again coming very briefly with these attributed reasons for the time preference, risk, preference for consumption and investment opportunities. For detail you can go for the lecture number 5 of the unit 1. Risk is associated with the returns, with the investments, with the stocks, with the assets, with any of the investment criteria, with any function of the business that could be of different class, different variety, different nature, but yes, there is risk, and if there is risk we have to make certain evaluations, we have to go with certain appraisal criteria. Preferences for consumption, now it is my choice, it is my nature, it is my decision that whether I am going for consumption, whether I am going for the saving, that is my choice as an individual, as a firm, as a business owner, as a business manager. Last is the investment opportunities, where I had talked about the opportunity cost, that the best alternative has foregone, but at the same time I also said the best alternative which has been analyzed by me as best could be better or good for some other analyst, which is very much dependent on the collective wisdom, acquired knowledge, the analytical bent of mind, etc. So, these are the attributes. Compounding, calculating the future value of the cash flows, and discounting is a reverse process of that, and while calculating the present value we are going to focus on this second concept, that is discounting, that is present value of calculating, process of calculating the present value of cash flow or present value calculation of the future cash flows. So, calculating the present value of single cash flow, I am reiterating the lines and just listen carefully. Present value of a future cash flow, that could be inflow or outflow, पैसा आ भी सकता है, पैसा जा भी सकता है, is the amount of current cash that is equivalent value of the decision maker. It means whatever is expected to come into the business or to go out of the business. Debit what comes in, credit what goes out. आ भी सकता है, जा भी सकता है, सोर्स भी हो सकता है, एप्लीकेशन भी हो सकता है, खर्चा भी हो सकता है, इनकम भी हो सकती है. What we have to do? We have to calculate the present value of that, whether it is inflow or outflow. If present value of that inflow or outflow is meeting with my decision criteria, is meeting with my present value, or is equal to my current opinion, or is more than that, I could be going with that investment opportunity, I could be going with that cash inflow or outflow. Second point says discounting is the process of determining present value of a series of future cash flows. Cash flow could be a single cash flow or it could be a series of cash flow also, as we talked about while compounding the different cash payments and calculating a payoff at a given point of time, calculating their terminal value. Third main important thing is here, the compound interest rate for discounting cash flow is also called the discount rate. So, the rate of interest I, small I, n was the number of periods. So, the rate of compounding I, what was the compounding value factor here, is going to be reversely used as present value factor. Both are same, but in compounding we are proceeding from 0 to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 number of years, number of periods, and in present value calculation we are coming back from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to 0. So, this is something we need to understand. Calculating the present value of the single cash flow. So, we will start with the future value and then we will come to the present value. So, future value is equal to principal plus interest on the principal, as we had taken an example in the previous chapter that I am having rupees 100, rate of interest is 10%, after 1 year what would be my deposit value. So, that was present value of the principal, that is rupees 100, interest on principal I is equal to 10%, that is rupees 10, then 100 is the principal, 10 is the interest amount after 1 year, and after 1 year the value of my rupees 100 investment would be rupees 110. Simple interest formula, which has been shown here. Fn is equal to P 1 plus I to the power n. Since I am calculating the present value of the single cash flow for a given time only, so I am taking n is equal to 1. So, F1 comes to be equal as P 1 plus I raised to the power 1. Flip them, this one, we have flipped it. So, it is appearing like where it was F1 P 1 plus I to the power 1. Now, what I am doing here? I am simply flipping them back. P is equal to F1 divided by 1 plus I to the power 1, or further I can write it down like P is equal to F1 multiplied by 1 upon 1 plus I raised to the power n. This one, it is here, and this formula is here. So, present value is equal to future value into PVF of rupee 1. So, this PVF 1 upon 1 plus I to the power n, 1 upon 1 plus I to the power n is known as the present value factor or the discount factor, discounting rate. It is just like the compounding rate. In compounding, we were proceeding forward, here we are coming backward. Again, understand it. 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. If I am having rupees 1000 after third year, 700 rupees after second year, and 4000 rupees after 4 year. This is my start point. So, I have to calculate these values here at this point. For example, if market rate was 6%, so I has been given and I have to calculate for the different given periods. So, here n is equal to 2, second would be n is equal to 3, likewise third would be n is equal to 4, and this can be easily done with the help of a present value factor of a lump sum of rupee 1. So, you can be seeing here in this column time has been taken, and here in this row rate of interest has been taken I. So, for a given number of period, for example, if n is equal to 1 and my compounding rate was 6%, so would be the discounting rate. So, for this 6, my selected value would be 0.9434. 0.9434. If n is equal to 7 and rate of interest is equal to 5, then what I have to do? This would be my discount factor, and the process will go like that. I have to multiply my future value with a present value factor of lump sum of rupee 1. So, my formula would be speaking like PV present value is equal to Fn, n number of periods, multiplied by PVF present value factor Ni, n is equal to number of years, number of periods, I is equal to rate of interest. So, this calculation I have to make here. So, let us go with an example. An investor is expecting to receive a sum of rupees 50,000 after 5 years. If rate of interest is 4%, calculate the present value of the future sum. So, what we have been given here, let us see. Here future value has been given as rupees 50,000 after 5 years. After 5 years, n is equal to 5 years. If rate of interest is 4%, I is equal to 4%. Evaluate the present value of future sum. So, what I have to do, that I have to find out here the present value factor for the n is equal to 5 and I is equal to 4. Let us go to our table. N is equal to 5. This one. I is equal to 4. This one. So, what is my corresponding cell value? My corresponding cell value comes to be this 0.8219. 0.8219. Okay. So, how this will be done? Present value is equal to future value multiplied by PVF for that n I, that is rupees 50,000 multiplied by 0.8219. 0.8219. Now, this 0.8219 is the present value factor for n is equal to 5 and I is equal to 4%, to which we have calculated from our table 0.8219. We are making a reverse process of the compounding. Likewise, we can take another example. For example, if we go for this rupees future value is equal to 1000 and this is supposed to be enjoyed after 2 years and rate of interest is equal to 6%. So, how we are going to calculate it? Let us go to our table. Okay, 6% पे देख लेते हैं इसको. This is here. N is equal to 2 years, I is equal to 6%, N is equal to 2 years, I is equal to 6%. This is I, this is N, the value comes to be 0.8900, 0.8900. PVF for 2, n is equal to 2 and I is equal to 6. So, let us calculate our value here. Present value is equal to future value multiplied by PVF for that n and I. So, future value was 1000 rupees. This was 0.8900, 0.8900 comes to be 890 present value. Now, we will proceed towards Calculating the value of an annuity. Annuity again, the fixed payment or receipt each year for a specified number of years. As we did in the compounding problems, where we were going to find out the value of my present investment and which was going to be done on a recurring basis year after year up to a given time period. So, this I need to calculate here. So, fixed payment receipts each year for a specified number of years. What I am going to do here, present value would be annuity cash flow multiplied by present value factor of annuity of rupees 1. As we had gone through the table of present value factor of lump sum of rupee 1, so only change is here that it is going to be calculated as not lump sum, like a recurring cash inflow or outflow. This is needed to be kept in mind, where I is the interest rate and n is equal to number of period. So, it is something that this is the start time 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. It could be the same amount or it could be the different amount, does not make any difference. What we have to do, that we have to calculate the present value factor for an annuity, but in many cases it is the same amount. So, for example, if I am going to have as an investor a value of rupees 1000, cash inflow of rupees 1000 at the end of first year, second year, third year and fourth year, then what would be the present value of my investment? In a single flow I was calculating this. Every of the corresponding value was going to be multiplied by with its corresponding present value factor of single cash flow for a given period and for a given rate of interest, n is equal to n and I. What has been written here? And we were going to find out the values here, then summing them up. If this was going to meet with my decision criteria, I could be going with that. Now, that was every single cash flow, either we can sum them up. Now, rather than sum them up, we are going to get a total amount of 4000, but in 4 years. So, let us try to calculate it with a given table. So, that is the PV of annuity of rupee 1. Here it has been n, that is the period, and on horizontal it is the I, that is the rate of interest. So, let us go for a problem here only. A person receives an annuity of rupees 5000 for 4 years, annuity of rupees 5000 for 4 years. Calculate the present value of annuity if the rate of interest is 10%. So, future value क्या है? For 4 years, and rate of interest is 10%. So, what I have to calculate? Present value. So, present value is equal to annuity multiplied by present value factor of annuity for n and I, where n is the rate of n is the number of periods and I is the rate of interest. So, I have to find out the PVFA for 4n and 10I. So, let us see 4n and 10I. So, this value comes to be 3.1699. 3.1699. That is PVFA N was 4 and I was 10%. So, PV would be 5000 multiplied by 3.1699. So, we can calculate it here. So, that is all about the calculation of the present value, as well as in the earlier chapter the future value of a single cash flow and annuity cash flow. So, it is going to be understood by the students, by the analysts even, that why it is important to calculate the present value as well as the future value, and ultimately we can integrating them in terms of understanding the time value of money. So, that is all about today's discussion, and thank you very much.